So what does Chiron represent in the human design chart? In 1977, an object was discovered by Charlie Cowell. It was later classified as a centaur and named 2060 Chiron. It was the first of the centaurs discovered. In astronomy, centaurs are classified as a small solar system body or object that, with perhaps one or few exceptions, unstably orbits the Sun between Jupiter and Neptune and crosses the orbits of one or more of the giant planets. A region known as the Kuiper belt. Just kidding. It's known as the Kuiper belt. Because of the fact that these outer solar system asteroids exhibit the characteristics of both asteroids and comets, they were named centaurs, which exhibit the characteristics of both human and horse, the top half of a man sitting atop a horse's body. Incidentally, the female version of centaurs are called centauresses or centaurides. I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. So let's pivot to Chiron's mythology and briefly look at a centaur's physical description. So like I said earlier, based on the word centaur, we're looking at a creature with the top half of a man sitting atop of a horse's body. Horse symbolism is very complex, and there are a great number of other meanings, but I find it interesting that Carl Jung considered it to perhaps represent the mother and the magical side of man. So man with underlying or buried historically feminine magical healing qualities, and conversely, Black Moon Lilith might be seen as more feminine with underlying historically masculine warrior or berserker qualities. It's important to note that Chiron didn't start out as a healer. Chiron grew into this role of healer, and not by choice. Before he was a healer, he was a killer, teaching others how to kill well. He was their top warrior, known for his expert proficiency in archery, and fabled to have trained Achilles, Jason, Asclepius, and Hercules, or Heracles, depending on if you prefer the Greek or Roman pronunciation. Hercules. I've heard it two ways. The first way I heard it was that he did it to himself, but I've also heard that Hercules accidentally tipped a quiver of poison arrows, and one fell on Chiron's foot, causing him permanent disability and pain, and he could no longer be the warrior that he was, and thus evolved to become a powerful healer who was unable to fix his own foot. And by his focusing on using his injury to help others, it brought relief and liberation to himself as well. And this is another TLDR Reader's Digest version of Chiron, but hopefully enough for you to grok the vibe. The concept of the wounded healer was based on that myth, but that moniker was not given to Chiron in that myth. It was later coined by Carl Jung, who believed that one was compelled to become an analyst to treat others because they themselves were wounded. A great majority of counselors, coaches, psychotherapists have experienced significant trauma or wounding themselves, which led to their career choice. And the journey for them becoming therapists involved their own healing journey toward a deeper understanding of themselves. Of course, there are those counselors and therapists who do not recognize their personal wounds, and so that can be a vulnerability when these wounds are activated when treating others with similar wounds, some of which may be areas the therapists are forced to embrace and accept in themselves. A wound here could also mean lacking the ability to make some perceived deformity otherwise. And by wound, your version of the poison-tipped arrow making you lame. How can you shift that? Chiron is showing you the possibly counterintuitive root cause. Not to make it go away, but as a salve to healing that aspect that needs it to be different. Radical self-acceptance. And that healing of the psyche and subconscious in turn demonstrates to others how to accept themselves, warts and wounds and all. Because in addition to therapists and counselors, teachers, coaches, mentors, and even gurus also have flaws. Of course, everyone does. Some don't recognize their stuff or simply won't look at it, and some hide their stuff better than others, at least for a while, and some push their stuff down so forcefully in some hidden compartment buried deep below that it springs back up later with the same force Jack-in-the-Box style, landing them on the front page. I'm sure some names come to mind. It's been said, those who shine the brightest light cast the biggest shadow. Don't expect your guides to be flawless. They aren't. They're a work in progress, just like yourself. So don't wait for you to become flawless before you serve others. Your special something is needed now. Do not sacrifice the good for the perfect. There are plenty of things one can improve about themselves, and self-mastery is a thing, but your Chiron placements are showing you the imperfect areas inside you that you must come to terms with and embrace. They're the portion of your healing journey where you're designed to lovingly embrace a painful, sensitive part of you, where you recognize what you cannot heal in yourself can help others. That awareness is healing, and grist for the mill to pay it forward in different ways depending on where it shows up and inside which gate and line. What can you help heal in others that you must accept carrying yourself? Those things that you should perhaps be carrying differently. Awareness is your key to reducing its weight and traveling much lighter. And that awareness can really shed light on aspects that pertain to your purpose in life. Certainly flavor how you're here to serve other people, helping them realize and grow or cope in these same areas. Where and what you may lack or are unable to make progress in yourself. This is important. These are areas where you should not judge yourself as a hypocrite when you can't walk your talk. Other areas fine, not these placements. How you hold these placements will either bring you pain or empowerment. What can you accept about yourself right now that you've been struggling with since you became aware of it? How might those things relate to your Chiron placements? If they don't, then those are things you can do something about. If they do, well, that's something helpful to become aware of and stay attentive to as best as you can. Being kinder to yourself while embracing your limitations, specifically the ones represented by your Chiron gate placements, because that attention will help you better zero in and recognize who you're here to serve, because you may better notice who may be experiencing difficulty in these same areas that others may have difficulty reconciling or integrating. Of course, it could be their Chiron too, and that would be something, wouldn't it? Now, when I suggest it's not about getting rid of this wound, that does not mean things cannot improve in these areas. With awareness, these areas become less painful and less susceptible to shock. In the same way, through exercise, you may be reminded of an old injury, but rather than stop, you might simply adjust your position accordingly. Yes, these Chiron sensitivities may also keynote very closely to or emphasize other aspects of your chart, like an undefined ego, for instance. So it will require further contemplation in parsing the specifics of your Chiron placements from other energies in your chart that may be flavored similarly. But working with these placements can usher in a new self-loving way of being and accepting yourself, a key to meaningful healing. After all, when you look at the astrological glyph for Chiron, you may notice that it is key-shaped. Oh, I touched upon this in the Lilith video, but in the event you don't see it, I wanted to add that the Sun, Earth, the Moon, its nodes, and the 8 classical planets are the only conditioners of the gates, the only neutrino filtering agents that imprint the body graph per human design canon. So other heavenly bodies and theoretical astrological calculations may indeed have a profound impact on a person and represent meaningful qualities of a person's life experience. They're not considered part of the human design body graph, and that's why you'll only see the gate and line number in the columns and not in the body graph itself. The Chiron return, which holds special significance to line 6s, marks the time in a life cycle around age 49 to 50 when Chiron returns to its natal placements, both for the personality and for the body approximately 3 months earlier, giving us perhaps another opportunity to re-experience these lifelong wounds or sensitivities, maybe to ping us as role models into confronting how these core life wounds are being held by our newest and last iteration. Like everything else we've acquired through wisdom, the universe likes to test us to make sure we truly do get it before we receive that final pat on the back. Anyway, I hope you found this helpful. Be sure to check out our Black Moon Lilith video if you haven't already. Lilith in some ways is a Jill to Chiron's Jack, another place to place our focus for a different reason that may be begging for your attention, because if you're unable to notice or attend to these areas that have a meaningful impact and effect on you, they can surprise you, and not in a good way. You're vulnerable to unconsciously repeating behaviors that are both self-limiting and self-destructive. So don't ignore Lilith either, because
nobody can save you.
I also wanted to quickly note two things. One, that our human design chart includes both your Chiron and your Lilith placements, and I'll include a link to get that for free in the description. And two, for only $5, we offer a quick reference to all the human design gates and channels. If you don't already own a trusty gate and channel reference, you can grab that from the same page you'll go to after opting in at that same link in the description. One last thing. I really like what Martin Lass said in his 2001 book entitled Musings of a Rogue Comet, Chiron Planet of Healing, which may sound familiar to those who work with the gene keys. He said, every wound has a hidden gift, a hidden service, a hidden blessing. So I encourage you to contemplate these human design Chiron placements, to excavate their hidden gifts, hidden blessings, and hidden service. Make love to your past and be born anew with fresh eyes. You are not your past. Your past was simply a way to prepare your service authentically. And what a blessing your past is for another, as it prepared you to help them. That last bit downloaded in a recent workshop Raquel conducted. Certainly when it comes to trauma in general, one might see that what you went through prepared you to authentically serve those who experienced or are experiencing something similar. And in that fashion, what a blessing your Chiron gates are for another, as they prepare you and bring your signal into even greater resonance with those you're here to help. Giving new meaning to old pain is a great way to heal our seeing, lighten our unique burdens, and reach a higher default consciousness setting. How we carry what we're designed to bear makes all the difference in the world. New insights, new heights. I hope you found this helpful. Good journey.